get a lot of questions about making homemade vinegar. So today I thought I'd cover Homemade Vinegar FAQs, frequently asked questions. Hi sweet friends, my name is Mary and welcome to Mary's Nest. I'm a former New York City girl, now living the simple life with my sweet husband here in the Texas Hill Country. And this channel is all about cooking from scratch, living naturally, and creating a cozy home with charming thrift store finds. So if you're like me and you want to live the simple life, be sure to subscribe to my channel and don't forget to click on the little notification bell below. That'll let you know every time I upload a new video. Well, I always enjoy making vinegar from fruit scraps. It's wonderful that it's just something that you might as well, throw out or put in the compost pile, that you can actually make something very useful out of. And in this case, in a previous video, I'm making citrus-scented vinegar. And here I've just got some orange peels. And in this one, I have just some oranges that were kind of past their prime. So I use the whole fruit in that one. And this one is actually different than the others. This was just not making homemade vinegar, but since I have it here, I just want to mention to you that all I did was take some mandarin orange peels and add white vinegar to it to make a scented vinegar. So I was already starting with vinegar, and I learned that from my friend Alicia over at Moat Cottage. And I thought I wanted to give that a try and just see how it is. And I have to say, it smells delicious. It's just delightful. But what I want to focus on today are these, the ones that you actually make homemade right from the beginning. And so what I've got here, as I said, is just orange peels. And to this, now some of the orange peels did have a little bit of fruit left on them. So what I did was added 1/4 cup of sugar, and then I filled it with water. Now these are somewhat swollen. I actually only filled the jar, and I'll link to the video where I show in detail how I made this, about a little more than halfway maybe. And then I added 1/4 cup of sugar, and I added some filtered water. I added up to about here because it does bubble up, and then this way you prevent it from spilling over. And that's the whole process. And then I take a chopstick, I stir it every day for 30 days, just once a day, sometimes twice a day. But at least once a day. And then after that, I put a coffee filter on. You could also use fabric if you want, whatever you have. And I just secure it with a rubber band. And then each day I take this off, stir it with the chopstick, and off we go. That's it. Now, if after a few days you notice that it's not really bubbling up anymore and it seems to have just calmed down considerably, then you want to add another 1/4 cup of sugar, and it's just white sugar, nothing fancy. And now this was really doing very well. And I think it was because there was just a lot of natural sugars maybe in here from the little bit of fruit that was left on some of the peels. So I didn't need to add in that extra 1/4 cup of sugar. But if you're using something that may have less natural sugars in it, you can even do this with flowers. Heidi over at Rain Country Homestead does this a lot. And to that you may need to add that extra 1/4 cup of sugar. But in any event, this didn't need it, so I didn't do it. And this seemed to have plenty of natural sugar. So other than the water and the initial 1/4 cup of sugar, I definitely didn't need to add any extra here. This was bubbling beautifully. Now, what you do after this, the same process. With this one, I just added the water, the 1/4 cup of sugar. I put stirred it with the chopstick, put the coffee filter on, the rubber band, and then that was it. Now, after about 30 days, it will smell like vinegar. And then at that point, I use these pH strips, and I've showed you these before, I think, in other videos where I've made homemade vinegar. And you just take the pH strip, you test it, you just take a little piece of it, you test it into the liquid, and if it's around 3.0, 3.5, you know you've got vinegar. And that's about the stage where I like it at. It's nice and vinegary. Now you cannot use this vinegar for canning. So if you're going to be doing canning, I just want to stress, you want to use the vinegar that you buy at the store. But this vinegar can be used for cleaning, it can be used for making salad dressing, it can be used as a hair rinse, it can be used for pretty much anything, but except canning. And so once it has that nice vinegary smell and it's testing with the pH strips between 3.0, 3.5, I think some people will even find 4.0 to be fine. So it's really up to you, but you're going to smell it. It's still going to have the smell of whatever fruit scraps you have used. So it will have, in the case of these, they had still a lovely citrus scent, but clearly there was the vinegar scent as well. So then what I do is I simply strain it, and I show that in another video where I'm straining and decanting the vinegar. And I strain it all out, and I'll link to that so you can see exactly what I do. And then I just decant it in a bottle. And now it's all set and ready to go. Now, some of the questions that I've received is why, especially because we're often talking about fermenting foods and so on and so forth when we have conversations and videos about making traditional foods, why am I not weighting this down like we would do when we're fermenting various things? And the reason is vinegar, making homemade vinegar, is a little different than the process involved if you were making sauerkraut or something like that, where you're naturally fermenting various fruits and vegetables. In this case, what happens is you want it to be porous. You want some air to be able to get into the vinegar, as opposed to in fermenting, where you want to keep the oxygen out. In this case, you don't want that to happen. You want the natural yeasts in the air to be able to get in and start the job. And the natural yeasts go through one process in terms of turning it into vinegar. And then once they're done with their process, a bacteria comes in and starts its process to make the final product, vinegar. And that bacteria is called Acetobacter, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I'm not a scientist. But that Acetobacter forms close to the surface, and it needs air. So once that bacteria takes over, that Acetobacter, that's when it turns this into acetic fermentation, basically. So it's a fermentation, but an acetic fermentation via the Acetobacter bacteria. And then you have vinegar. So although vinegar is in a sense a fermentation, it's an acetic fermentation with the Acetobacter bacteria, which needs the air. So that's why, I hope that answers the question, I don't weight it down with one of those weights or a plastic bag filled with water or whatever the case may be. You want the air to be able to get in so that the Acetobacter, which needs the air, can do its job. If you'd like to learn more about how to make citrus-scented homemade vinegar, be sure to subscribe to my channel and then click over here where I have a short playlist that'll walk you through all the steps on how to make this. And I'll see you over there in my Texas Hill Country kitchen. Love and God bless.